Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we're going to look at the endocrine system. So yesterday, or last lecture that you saw, we looked at the nervous system. And the nervous system acts pretty much immediately. And we saw that the sympathetic nervous system has to do with this flight or fight response. So that's happening very rapidly, very immediately, responding in the moment to certain situations. Now this endocrine system works very much slower, and as you see, it's slow but sure. It happens over time, but the effects are definitely felt. So the endocrine system, this refers to a set of glands that produce chemical messengers called hormones. So just like the nervous system, messages are sent. Just like the neural system in the brain, messages are sent, except rather through synapses, they're sent through the bloodstream. So while the nervous system and our brain sends messages through synapses, like sort of electrical pulses, the endocrine system sends messages through the bloodstream using hormones. So these molecules called hormones are produced by the various glands around the bodies. And if you could see in this diagram right here, we can see the various glands that produce different things. So the pituitary gland, we'll look at that in a bit, secretes a bunch of different hormones which affect all of the other glands. And we'll see that this is the master gland. We'll talk about that in a bit. Hypothalamus controls the pituitary gland. Now if we look at the thyroid and the parathyroids, this help regulate certain things with the body, such as metabolism. That's why many people who suffer from obesity often have thyroid issues. The parathyroids help regulate the level of calcium in the blood, which is of course important for bone development. We have the adrenal glands and the pancreas. So these are part of the sympathetic nervous system, meaning they act pretty much immediately. The inner part of the adrenal glands helps trigger the fight or flight response. So if you look at that word adrenal, the word adrenaline, this is produced in the adrenal glands. So when we're getting really fired up in the moment and we have to do something really intense, that's when our adrenal glands are pumping. The pancreas regulates the level of sugar in the blood. And then of course we have everybody's favorite sex organs. And of course these aren't activated until puberty. However, after puberty they do have a very distinct effect on our psychology, as all of you teenagers probably are very aware of. So these adrenal glands, let's take a little bit of a closer look at them. As you can see, they are called kidney caps as well. These are the kidneys, and this is the pancreas. So they produce hormones such as adrenaline, epinephrine, noradrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol. So this cortisol is related to stress, and in our stress unit coming up, we'll look about cortisol in a little bit more depth. So we talked about the sympathetic nervous system last week, and this is the fight or flight response, and it responds to stress by sending a message to the adrenal glands to release the hormones listed above. And depending on whether it's a fight message or a flight message, different hormones will be secreted. But these adrenal glands are responding to stressful moments, and they're secreting messages, hormones messages, based on what's happening around you. So some of the effects are increased heart rate, blood pressure, and blood sugar. These provide the energy for the flight or fight. You're either going to throw up your dukes and start fighting, or you are going to hightail it out of there. So you need the high blood pressure for your body to get enough blood and oxygen for it to perform at that rate, and you need blood sugar because you're going to be using a lot of energy. Now, the pituitary gland, as I mentioned before, acts as the master gland of the endocrine system. So this controls everything. It's controlled by the nervous system, through the nervous system, by the nearby brain area called the hypothalamus. So the pituitary gland controls the endocrine system, but the pituitary gland is controlled by the hypothalamus. So this pituitary gland produces hormones that regulate other glands, such as the thyroid. That's why we call it the master gland, because it secretes hormones that then regulate the other glands that are themselves producing hormones. So it also produces growth hormone, called human growth hormone, and oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Now this human growth hormone, this is why, so there's a disease called acromegalia. If you know of the wrestler from the 80s, Andre the Giant, he had this disease. So his pituitary gland was out of control, produced way too much human growth hormone, so he grew to almost 8 feet tall. And he died because he just grew too much. So the pituitary gland regulates growth, but also this oxytocin, called the bonding hormone. So mothers and babies bond through this hormone. Also, when you hug someone, what you're exchanging is oxytocin. So any wanted touch between humans produces this bonding hormone called oxytocin. All right, so that is all we have for tonight. Just to review, the main things to take away are these adrenal glands produce this fight or flight response through these hormones responding to whether or not we're fighting or flighting. Also, the endocrine system in general relays messages through the bloodstream in the form of hormones. Okay? So, in short, the endocrine system sends messages to the rest of the body through the bloodstream using hormones, and then these adrenal glands and the other glands regulate our things like our heart rate, our blood pressure, through hormones as well. So the thing to take away from this unit is that the endocrine system is slow, and it uses the bloodstream to secrete hormones to regulate the body. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.